Hang on. Sorry, guys. I just found I was sharing the wrong screen, and that's not what we want to be doing. There we go. That looks a lot better. Right. There we go. Thumbs up if you can see me, folks. It's fantastic. Okay, so here we go. Another installment in the 52-week MBA program, which may end up being a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, depending upon a couple of things, my interest and yours, but we'll see how we go. The idea of the 52-week MBA program is literally 4 parts. The first 90 odd days or 3 months is to make sure that you've got the foundation to build a high 6 to 7 figure business. That's why we spent time talking about signature systems, products, USPs, and points of difference and all that sort of thing. Part 2, we'll be starting to look more densely and intensely at marketing and how we can try and help you get marketing that beats your competition. We'll look at finances, which sounds dreadful, but I'll make it fun. And trust me, you don't have to be an accountant to figure out how to leverage finances and knowing your numbers. Part 3 and part 4 is going to be all about growing your profit. So who is this guy? Look, I've been around for a long time. Those of you here, you'll know me, so I won't bother going through it. But just suffice to know that I've got 30 plus years experience at senior level in corporate. I used to lecture on business at university, and before that I was a high school teacher. And I've been doing this coaching, consulting, business advisory thing for about 12 years and quite successfully. As always, I will talk and I will talk fairly fast, but the thing is, it's not blah, blah, blah. There is a lot of good information that you can take away and use. Take notes as you go, please, but also revisit this on the Be Connected World website so you can watch this at your leisure and pick up some of the stuff that I'm giving you. As I said, it's going to be fast as always because time is limited. So it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. I would love to have some questions this week. If we could, if any questions appear, please write them down at the end of the little presentation. We'll do it. We'll talk to you and answer those. Time is short, so let's get into it. Here's a simple question for you to ask. If you bought your own business today, what would you change to get it to turning over 100k or 200k per annum? If you're already doing that, then what would you do to have it change, turn over 300k? But think about that. If you walked into your business today as the new owner, what would you change? Because often we get so close to doing what we're doing, we don't think about our business. We get very internalized in our viewpoint and we start missing things. So it's good to step back now and again and look at our business and go, gee, if I just bought this, what would I change to make it better? So it's a question to do. The other thing is talking to a lot of Be Connected World members the last 12 months. A lot of you want to get somewhere between 100 and 200k turnover, if not higher. But you need to have a reason. It's not just enough to say, I want to make 200k. That's fine, but it's quite facile. You need to understand a bit more the depth of why you want to do it. Look, it might be because you want to catch up or get ahead financially. You might just want freedom to do what you want when you want. You might want more time with your family. You might want to build a dollar buffer. You might want to travel a lot more, leave a legacy. It doesn't really matter, but you need to be clear on why do you want to turn over a certain amount of money from your business. In other words, what role in your life is your business giving you? And hopefully it's a bit more than your identity. I was talking yesterday to a gentleman who's very successfully run a business for quite a number of years, and he sold it. And now he has found out he doesn't know who he is because his whole identity was tied up in his business and he's lost sight of who he is. So hopefully that's not any of you. Unfortunately, the truth for most of us as business owners is this. We've got a business and we build our life around it, which means, of course, it's easy to get overwhelmed. We don't pay enough attention to the other people in our lives. And because we get overwhelmed, well, we suffer from SBOS, which is shiny, bright object syndrome. We keep looking for shortcuts instead of doing the basics. We keep looking for the magic silver bullet. Of course, there isn't one. So the better way to look at it is decide what you want in your life and build your business around that. You know, those of you who've done planning with me and you've seen me do presentations on it, I always say when you're doing your annual plan, the first things you put in your personal things, when you're going to have 2 weeks holiday or 4 weeks holiday, when you're going to have long weekends, when are your date nights, when are people's birthdays, when's anniversaries, when are concerts you're going to go to, etc. You put that stuff in first so your life is looked after. Then you start feeding in the business. Too many people plan business first, life second. And at the end of the day, the reason we're in business, maybe a lot of reasons, but the underlying one is we're in business, so it supports the lifestyle that we've got. So we really want to look after that. So if you want to have a lifestyle business, maybe some of you don't understand. It's really not sitting on the beach at Koh Samui with a laptop and earning $1 million a month. That happens for maybe the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Most people can't live off a laptop, but a lifestyle business is quite attainable for most of us. Lifestyle business has things like flexibility, good work-life balance. I hate the word balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's work-life integration, and personal fulfillment. All right. There's a limited growth potential, but you need to understand how much is enough. There's no sense trying to create a $10 million a year business if actually $2 million a year or 350 grand a year would give you all you want. They say a lower revenue potential. That's less and less true. It used to be very true maybe 8-9 years ago, but now, quite frankly, lifestyle business, the sky's the limit, depending how you use it. And often it's owner dependent. But owner dependency happens when people don't structure their business the right way. One of the things I do with people is I help them put their business on cruise control so you can have 6 weeks off and come back and the business is still going, so it's not owner dependent. But a lifestyle business is a type of business that prioritizes the owner's lifestyle rather than necessarily maximizing profits or chasing high growth for the sake of growth. And that sounds attractive. Then take a breath, because you need to make a plan for it. And the plan needs a couple of components to it. The first one is, you've heard me say before, there are 3 main levers in a business. There is the lever of revenue, how you generate your income. There is a lever for capacity, that is how you deliver on your promise to your clients, you deliver your goods and services. And the third lever is cost control, how you make sure that you're not wasting money on things that you don't need to keep the business running. That's the first part. The second part is you need a thing called the cascade. I get really annoyed when I hear people saying it all starts with leads. That's BS. Your business doesn't start with leads. Your business starts with a product or service that you understand you can deliver that solves a problem that people are willing to pay for. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to figure out your product or your service. Who's it for? What problem does it solve? How do you deliver it? How often do you deliver it? And who do you deliver it to? When you've got that, then you work on promotion. How am I going to promote my product or service so it reaches the eyeballs and the ears of the people that I want to help? From promotions, people show interest. That's where your leads come in. And once you get leads, the idea is to convert them. So that means you should usually have a chat, or if you want to be salesy, you want to have a pitch. So the cascade you should build is what you'll clearly know your product or service, understand how to promote it, then from that get your leads, and then start trying to get some sales from it. When you're planning, the gap is where you are now to where you want to be, from here to there. It's like timeframes. I used to work with people and I used to do things for people. I do 10-year and 5-year business plans and all that. But the last 5 years, all I've been doing with people is we work on 12 months and 36 months. The world changes too fast. Anything beyond 36-month planning, quite frankly, is a waste of time and will create nothing more than shelf furniture where you pull it down once a year, dust it off and think, oh, no, it's the same, and put it away. You also should look, when you're doing this plan, at setting your goals. You should have personal goals and business goals. And again, you should be looking at your business as the means of supporting and bringing about the ability to achieve your personal goals. So can't really lift my arm because I'm still in a sling, but if you've got your personal goals, underneath them, you should have your business goals to support them. They shouldn't be side by side. Business shouldn't be up top. It should be your personal goals first and figuring out your business goals so that they support the outcomes you want personally. Key question to help you do that is this one: how much is enough? Those of you who've been clients of mine or are clients of mine know that this is something we go through every 12 or so weeks. We sit down and we figure out, for things that interest you, firstly, money, how much is enough? I said before, lots of people get caught up in chasing turnover and revenue and money for money's sake, not realizing that they don't need $5 million a year revenue. They'd be just as happy on $500,000 a year revenue. So you need to figure out how much is enough money that you need. How much is enough travel, if you like travel? How much enough toys, enough cars, enough motorbikes? You know, how many date nights do you want? How many new experiences do you want to have in a year? How many theatre shows do you want to see? Decide the things that are important to you, but ask yourself that question. Money is always has to be one of them, is how much is enough? because that gives you a baseline to start working from with what you're doing. The next part of that, of course, is in what time frame. So if I want to have $1 million sitting in the bank, what time frame? Is that 12 months? Is that 3 years? Is it maybe longer? I don't know. Different for you. If I want to start having a date night every single night, well, I can start that from next week and commit to it. But maybe you need to work longer. But figure out how much is enough and then in what time frame. So that, of course, knowing how much is enough will give you a target dollar amount for your planning. The time frame will help you do it. The next thing you need to do is start, how do I tackle it? Where do I start? Where do I start getting more money? Things like that. Well, you've got to understand your numbers a little bit. A lot of people I speak to go 100k, whether it's 100k a year or every 3 months or even every month. I work with people who, some of my clients do $1 million a month in their businesses. Others do 10 grand a month. If you want to do 100k, just understand this. It's $52 an hour. It's $416 a day in a year. My coffee fairy's just appeared. Thank you very much, darling. Right, it's $2,010 a week or $8,333 a month, and that's working off 48 weeks or 8 hours a day. So if you look at that, how can I do something in my business that's going to give me $416 a day? Makes it easier to look at. If you want to really get shocked, look at the $1 million math. $1 million is $83,333 a month. That's 20 grand a week. That's $467 a day on a 5-day week or $174 an hour. When you start breaking it down to that, and with the ability that we all have for our businesses to become global small businesses and for us to reach millions of people through the internet, social media, etc., maybe the big numbers you want that you've been shying away from, maybe they're not that big after all. Is there an online product you can create that's going to sell all the time? I don't know, but the key thing here is I want you to think about is 100k a year is pretty much $8,300 a month. $1 million a year is $83,000 a month. Those numbers are not as staggering as people think. The other way to work this out is to understand the ATV, which is the average transaction value in your business. So that means your total sales divided by the total number of whatever it is you sell. So if you sell plastic buckets, it's the number of plastic buckets you sell for So the formula is quite simple. I want to do 100k in a year. You divide that by how much I sell my services for, and that will tell you how many of them you've got to sell. I want to do $1 million a year or $500 a year, or I want to do $350,000 a year. It's the same thing. Divide the dollars you want to make in a year by the price of your product or service that you sell, and that will tell you how many of them you've got to sell. From there, you can then start looking at how am I going to market these things. Then you can start budgeting. Gee, I've got to sell 60 units. That's 5 a month. So how can I start selling 5 a month, etc., etc. You should also be aware of the mix. I'm a great believer in not having too many products because it diffuses your energy, but some businesses have to have a lot of products. So you look at your product mix and you do historical stuff where you go, well, last year I did $100,000. I've got 5 products. One product gave me 60% of my sales. Product number 2 gave me 25%. Product 3 gave me 10%. Then you know roughly how much money you should be making in terms of revenue for each product. So if you've got your big product and it's not giving you 60% of your sales each month, and the other ones haven't increased in sales to support it, then you know you've got a real problem. You're losing relevancy in the marketplace. But as best as possible, it's best to have as few products as possible. I've got 47 products and services I can offer to people, but I only generally talk about 3 or 4 absolute maximum. And there's only 1 or 2 that I really like doing the most of, but they're there if people need them. I can talk about them. So look at your business. What product is your king product that is giving you the largest amount of sales? And what's number 2? What's number 3? Understand those numbers. It will help with your planning. Planning can be overwhelming and planning can get very, very confusing. But here's the simplest plan I know. 4 simple steps. Doesn't mean it's easy. And step 3 is where most people screw up. But really, it's this. Know where you want to go. Well, you know how much is enough. You know what your time frame is. You know what your average transaction value is. So you've got that stuff. Know where you are now. Well, hopefully you know how much you're turning over at the moment. Know what you have to do. Well, you've got to have your product, then you've got to have your promotions, then you've got to generate leads, and then you've got to sell. So you understand that. The next step is do it. That's the one where people have trouble. The way to get to 100k or 200k or beyond is to become top line driven. And what that means is if you look at your P&L, your financial reports, the very top line is always sales. Too many businesses get lost in trying to worry about the bottom line gross profit, or sorry, their net operating profit. And that's important, don't get me wrong. But if you're trying to build a business, you need to get your revenue right first, because everything comes out of the revenue. If your revenue is crap, it doesn't matter how good your control systems or your cost control is, you're still not going to make much money. So you need to have a budget, not too hard, not too easy. You need to know your average transaction value. You also need to know an LTCV, and that just means the lifetime customer value. How much is each customer worth to you over the lifetime they deal with you? Some customers and some of your businesses mainly deal with you once. Other people will come back time again. I imagine Lucia has quite a number of people who come back to her again and again. So her lifetime customer value will be quite different from someone who only sells one product once. Keep your pipeline full, and that means like always be having sales conversations, getting people up. One of the smartest things that people like Ross and I can do is have a wait list. Up until COVID, I used to have a wait list of 12 to 15 people. COVID killed that, and I'm slowly rebuilding it now. But keep your pipeline full. Don't suddenly turn around and go, my customers I've got to start getting new customers. You know, getting customers into your pipeline is something you should be doing all the time. You need to accept that businesses thrive or fail on sales. If you're not top line driven, if you're not achieving your sales, nothing will happen. You need to know your sleep at night number. That's what SANN stands for. A sleep at night number is as easy as checking your bank on your phone and going, there's 30 grand there in that account, I'm great. Or there's 3 grand, whatever your number happens to be, but understand your sleep at night number. And if it's not there, then you're going to have to do it. And yes, with my clients, I help you work out your sleep at night number, etc. Cash flow is always going to be king. All right. You need cash flow more than you need concrete assets in your business, particularly the way the world is going at the moment. And with all that fun happening overseas in Iran and what's going to happen with petrol prices and the rest of it, we really need to make sure our cash flow is strong. Another thing is control your creditors. Make sure the credit terms that you're paying to any suppliers make sure people are paying you the way they should and on time. It's all right to make exceptions to the rule, but in general, if your terms are net 30 days or net 45 or whatever, then you need to hold people to it. And you need not to be backwards or shy about asking people to pay what they owe. The next thing in getting to 100k, 200k and above is you need to have a very clear understanding about why people buy. And people primarily buy for the way they think or they hope they'll feel when they use or own the product or service that they've just paid for, right? Buying is an emotional thing. People justify logically that buying is an emotional act. So most of the time when people are buying things, they're buying for the way they imagine they'll feel after they've purchased or used that product or service. So if you know that, how's that going to affect your marketing, the way you talk to your clients or your potential customers? What emotional hook can you use there? If you want some research on it, Robert Cialdini's book, Weapons of Influence, is probably the most influential marketing book of all time. He's just revised it a couple of years ago and added number 7, which is unity. But there are 7 principles. There's reciprocity. I give you something and for free, or I do a service for you. People sort of feel like they've got to give back. That's a good thing. Commitment, that's being consistent. That's being there, turning up time after time. That's why if you're doing videos or LinkedIn posts, you should do it regularly. You shouldn't just do a burst of them and have a break and do another burst. It should be consistent. Social proof. People love hearing that other people have used your product or service and got a great result. Liking, you've got to be likable. It's very hard to buy something from someone who makes your teeth grind together. Someone needs to have authority. You need to be seen to be credible. Scarcity, well, I get very annoyed when people are selling a PDF online and they say, hurry up now, limited supply, because it's not. But if it's generally something that you are going to run out of, or it's a limited design, or you're deliberately making it scarce, that's fine. And then unity, of course, is more about community and things like that. The strongest trigger to people from an emotional point of view is Pain avoidance. You should be selling pain relief, not vitamins. Vitamins can help conditions over time, but pain relief stops you hurting really quickly. So you should sell pain relief, not vitamins. You should sell benefits, not features. Benefits are how you feel when you're driving that soft top Corvette down the Great Ocean Road with the wind in your hair. A benefit is that it uses 8 litres per 100 kilometres. You should know the difference between the two. You should be talking to people emotions first and their logic second. In fact, in rough terms, the best way to do sales is to talk emotions, give them the logical stuff to justify it, then go back to the emotions and help people get on from there. Of course, you need to have a very clear idea about your client. I mean, what are they hurting from? What's their pain point? What are their fears or their wants? And what are their needs and their aspirations? You can do psychographics, demographics, and all that sort of stuff, and that's fine. That's part of the process, but you need to understand your client. You need to understand their campfires. In other words, what places do they choose to go to and be at socially? Maybe you can meet them there. What are their watering holes? Watering holes are places they have to be. Work's obviously a sign of a watering hole. This happens a lot to many of us. We end up in the right church, but we're sitting in the wrong pew. So you've got to figure out whether you are niching down enough to get to the right people or whether you're just sort of in the general vicinity. The tighter your targeting is, the more likely you are to get decent results. We've spent the last couple of weeks talking about USPs, points of difference and products and whatnot, so I'm not going to go into that. But every product should provide a solution to a pain point, generally speaking. Now, whether that's someone who wants to be an online movie critic who drinks beer and watches videos, as someone who tried to be a client of mine a couple of years was, don't know. But whatever their problem is, you need to have a solution. You should have a signature system. But here's something you can all do straight away. Raise your prices right now. I've yet to find a single client I've worked with over the last 12 years that was charging what their business was worth or what their services and products were worth. And understand the math, and I'll talk about the math in the next one here, okay? So you should always be raising your prices when there's an inflationary raise. If inflation's 2%, your price should go. If inflation's 5%, your prices should go up. If you're in an area where you're helping disadvantaged people, perhaps you might want to absorb losses for a while, but that just means when you've got to catch up, it's going to be a bigger hit to people. It's much better to do it incrementally. And people understand price rises due to cost of living and inflation. The 10% and 25% is simply this. If you were to raise your prices by 10%, you would have to lose 25% of your existing customers to make less money. Understand that. If you raised your prices by 10%, you'd have to lose 25% of your existing customers to make less money. You can increase your prices by limiting availability, because people, scarcity, people always pay more for something that's in short supply. You can add a level of value or stuff and then increase your price. You might, if you're a coach, you might add an extra coaching call once a month or something or other worth $1,000 and charge a little bit extra, right? And you should promptly pass on any cost increases you get. So not just inflationary cost, but any cost increases you get. So smart businesses now will be talking about budgeting for what's the likelihood of increase in petrol prices and what effects will that have on their operating costs and how much will they have to charge people. If you're in manufacturing or transport in particular, you can see there's going to be an awful lot of prices having to go up or maybe absorbed for a short period of time. But there'll be a lot of what they call second order consequences, because if transport prices go up, so does everything else. The 10% effect, though, not just in terms of pricing, can be applied across your business. So imagine if you, at the moment, bear with the slide, if you were generating 1,000 leads a month from LinkedIn or whatever, imagine if you got them by 10, you added another 100, you got to 1,100 leads a month. If you were converting 25% of everyone you got on a sales call, imagine if you started converting 27.5%. If you were getting 250 clients out of 1,000 and you got 10% more, you get 302 out of 1,100. Imagine if your transactions rose from 10 to 11. Imagine if your average sale went from 100 to 110. Look at the effect on your revenue. Just by adding 10% down here, your revenue has gone up by $115,000. margin 25, they make your margin 27.5 by controlling your costs a bit better or buying better, and look at the effect on your net profit, on what you're taking home. That's just 10% across simple things. So ask yourself, how can I increase my leads by 10%? How can I convert 10% more people? How can I turn those people into more customers? How can I get 10% more transactions happening? And how can I charge 10% more? Those simple actions mean an awful lot more money in your pocket, which means a lot better lifestyle for you, which ties back to how much is enough, because where you might think, my God, I've got to turn over $2 million to have the lifestyle I want. Maybe you don't, not if you're doing the 10%. So we should all try and sell more. If you're someone who works off appointments, all right, then the white spaces in your calendar should be treated as public enemy number one. Doesn't matter if you're a hairdresser, a chiropractor, a business coach, whatever. If you take appointments with people and you have white spaces in your calendar, you must declare war on them and try to fill them. The best way to do that is to condense your week and start off by filling Wednesdays with first, then Thursdays, then Tuesdays, then Fridays, then Mondays. I've talked about it before. We'll probably will again before the end of the year. But white spaces are the absolute enemy of anyone who meets with people. You should create 3 for 2 product bundles if that you can, or second service 50% off. You see that all the time, buy 2, get the second one 50% off, that type of stuff. Reactivate your old clients with a call or an offer. You should be regularly ringing up old clients, touching base, letting them know you're still alive. A lot of my clients will work with me for 12 to 18 months, sometimes up to 3 years, but normally after 18 months, I sort of tell them to go away and use everything they've used, and then they come back 6 months after that and they're ready for the next level or a refresher. We forget that once people leave us, we forget, especially if we're teaching people or coaching people, that they probably need to be reminded, or they probably are ready for the next level of stuff. So we should be talking to them. And if you have staff, train them to sell, for God's sake. You get more clients, well, have a clear, oh, look at that, value proposition, unique selling point, or point of difference. They're the things you need, guys. Like Blue Ocean, you've heard me talk about Blue Ocean strategy. Bottom line is Red Ocean is where everyone's competing on price. Blue Ocean is where people are competing more on value and standing out from other people. You have to market and produce more, promote more. Maybe you can look at getting into new markets. And for heaven's sake, work really hard at promoting within the Be Connected world. Network your backside off, because that's where you'll get some clients. You can sell more to current clients by adding more products or services or value. You can have current client only offers. All right. One of the things that annoys me about electricity companies is they're offering all these fantastic incentives for new clients. They don't do anything for the old clients. The interesting thing is if you ring them up and say, I'm going to leave because I see this fantastic deal, it's better than the one I'm on, it's amazing how quickly you get the same deal as the new clients. But think about client-only offers. You can update or upgrade their product or service depending what you've got. It might, if there's an app or software, it might be a tool, whatever. You can add in training to them. You can have other add-ons. You can even build tribal merchandise. I'm working with a guy called Jody Rainsford, who his program's called Create a Cult, but he actually has a running school. They're a group of runners and they hate park run. They absolutely hate park run, so that's their enemy. But he's got a whole heap of tribal merchandise they all wear with their things that's saying, it hurts, but I get there, and all that sort of stuff. But it gives people an identity. So maybe it's not a bad idea to think about caps and thermoses, depending on the type of business you've got. Should try a new market. Joint ventures or OPN, other people's networks, is deadly important, right? There has to be a lot of synergies here that people just aren't looking at there. Maybe there's a new way to apply your product or thing. Maybe you can rebadge it, rebuild it, or add a new version to it. And maybe you can just alter it or repurpose it. The fastest way I know to grow is literally to do this thing called the power of one. That is where you have one product or service with one target market, you do one promotional platform, and you do that for 1 year. And once that's turning over the money that you want, then's the time to expand out and do that. I didn't learn this early enough, which is why I've got 47 products and services and talk about 2 or 3. But every business I've known that's done this, one product or service for one target market on one platform for 1 year, has very, very quickly got over $500,000 a year in what they're doing. So it's worthwhile thinking about. This one's underestimated, your network. Be Connected World, we're not a networking group. It's a business growth platform and gives you so much more, but it is still a network of people. You should be using this. You should be talking to one another here. And of course, you should be seeing what other networks you've got. And do this as well. If you've got people in your network who constantly ask you for things but never give things back in return, maybe it's time to cut them free, because the less users you have in your life, the more headspace and time you've got to actually work with people that reciprocate. But understand this, no matter all the stuff I've spoken to, everything starts with you. You've got to commit to it. You've got to do the planning, and you've got to get off your backside and actually do stuff. The worst form of procrastination is one I suffer from, which is constantly learning stuff. I love learning. That's my number one drive, if you like. But it's very easy for me to just keep learning and learning and learning and turn around and realize something I was going to launch 4 years ago I'm still learning about. So master yourself. So if you're ready to fly, are you? Ask yourself, am I ready to fly, or am I just ready to settle? Because you need to understand there is no silver bullet. But if what I've said today, even if some of it's made sense to you today, please draw a line in the sand. Get hold of a notebook. Come on, we just wait for this to catch up. Try it again. No, there we go. I'd love each one of you to grab a notebook, and instead of doing a to-do list or doing my famous to-don't list, do a today I will list. No more than 5 things. Today I will, and put 5 things down there and start doing that every day. And in fact, treat it like the 5x5 system I have, where 5 o'clock at night, you do a brain dump and you pick 5 things you'll have done by 5 o'clock the following night. When you do another brain dump and you pick 5 things you're going to have done by 5 o'clock the following day. But it's interesting, that little tweak by saying today I will, as opposed to just a list without a heading or a list that says to-do list. You'd be amazed how much more you seem to get done. It flicks some sort of psychological switch. Anyway, I'd love you to apply what you've seen. Don't get in your own way. Don't stick your heads in the sand. I haven't shown this for a while, but Henry Rollins, there's no such thing as spare time, no such thing as free time, no such thing as downtime. All you've got is lifetime. Go. If you need a hand, help is available. Let's have a chat. I'll put my calendar link in the chat, or you can quickly scan that, or if you're on the replay, you can certainly scan the QR code and have a meeting with me, a non-sales meeting, see if I can help you. So if you've got any questions, now would be the time to start doing them. Thank you.
Okay, has anybody got any questions for Geoff there?